The Morning Dump from Hurrdat Sports with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
It's the Morning Dump alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. High school sports preview is where we're kicking this thing off, and there's no better man to talk to in town than Mike Sautter. Mike, the Director of Sports and Digital Content for the NEB Preps. Mike, thanks for joining us this morning.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Hey, how tired are you after being at PBA all of yesterday and now just turning your day right back around and continuing to follow along with high school sports as we move into Friday?
That's every day, but I'm all right. Have some caffeine and a little bit of lack of sleep never hurt. So,
How many hours do you need? Because I'm guessing you didn't get home till after 11 last night. How many hours of sleep do you need to function?
Four-ish, 4 or 5.
4-ish.
Yeah.
Will we get crabby Mike Sautter like we got about a month ago? That was a train wreck.
No, I'm no, I'm good. I'm good today.
Yeah.
I think I'm about half a cup of coffee in so far. I took a walk. I walked my kids to school this morning, so that kind of woke me up a little bit.
Yeah. Did you notice how cool it was this morning?
It wasn't that cool. It was like, it was all right. It's gonna rain though.
It's gonna rain.
Who you, Ollie Williams or somebody? It's gonna rain. Hey, so there's a number of places that we could go with this. We've got your article on the executive director search for NSAA, kind of what that entails, the degree of difficulty. You've got state volleyball going on. You've got state football going on. You've got the fact that you have the worst starting quarterback in the NFL for a team with a winning record. We've got that going on. What do we do?
Where do you want to start?
What do we do?
Is this pick on Mike Sautter Day?
It always is. It always is. I do like your glasses today, though, Mike. That's fantastic.
I like to trade them out if you didn't know. I own a couple pairs of glasses, so
like
it's a way for me to show my personality a little bit. Actually, no, it's not. It's more of what I'm wearing that day in outfits. So, yes, I'm the girl when it comes to that.
So I am curious, though. I mean, you were at state volleyball last night, so let's just dovetail a couple of things. Obviously, with the article that had just come out the night before with the executive director search and NSAA, you're amongst the NSAA brethren at, PBA yesterday. You're kind of amongst the folks. How was that received? What was the general perception of the article in the immediacy of reading it?
Yeah, so the article itself just kind of breaks down the process of hiring the next NSAA executive director, or the boss. Not the boss of the board, but the boss of the people, the person that runs things, right? So it was perceived 50-50, I guess. Depends on where you live, I think. But I think the key thing here is what it did is it started a conversation with people that haven't really had that conversation before. I think I was the first person in this situation to say the quiet part out loud. The part that, what I mean by that is the part that, hey, the majority of students actually in the state that participate in NSA activities, they actually live in 3 counties 60 miles west of the Missouri River. There probably should be a little more representation there. The next, executive director, in my opinion, and this is kind of what I'm getting at, should be comfortable if they landed just randomly on North 24th Street in Omaha, as comfortable as they would be on 2nd Avenue in Sutherland. I think that the next person, that's key, because the challenges, which I laid out kind of in the column, are a lot greater than putting shot clocks on backboards in gyms. They're going to be.
So it's interesting because you've got guys like Resnicek who have familiarity with, Omaha, obviously Tom Lee. You have some representation currently on the board of directors. How does the executive director play such an integral role in kind of you wanting us to see that angle from the approach?
Well, so that the executive director, in my opinion, well, first of all, they've had a new one every 2.5 years for the last 10, 11 years, 12 years.
It's a very difficult job.
Yeah, well, the turnover has been great. Like, it's been a lot. People that have worked there, there's people that are assistant, directors that are in charge of the different sports and different things. A handful of them have had, this will be their 5th boss in 12 years. It's hard to make impactful changes if your boss is continually changing. So I think that's important. I also think, yes, the board is the one, the member schools make the decisions, or vote on legislation.
Or at least the proposals in the voting.
Yeah, they make, they pass the legislation and all the bylaws and all of that stuff. That comes from the schools and the 6 districts and everything. The executive director is key because their main job is to rule on eligibility kind of fights, if you will. So, if you're not comfortable with, hey, like the family dynamic in, let's face it, like South Omaha, North Omaha is way different than the family dynamic in Gibbon. Like, it just is. And you need to be comfortable to balance that because, if a good athlete is ineligible for some reason, because he had to go live with his aunt because his mom, something happened or whatever, we need to have a little empathy, sympathy there. And if you're not comfortable in that setting, then it's kind of, you always kind of play back to, oh, no, right? The easy answer is no. But there needs to be someone that can relate a little bit. I also personally think that the next person needs to be very much so front facing. When I say front facing, I mean out in front of.
Oh, present.
Like, yeah, like be there, like show up. The assistant directors are always at games and see them all the time. But the actual director, that person needs to be like, where are they at on a Friday night football game? What are they doing I get it. Like, it's a challenging job. It's a tough job. They have people that's their job, but you also need to be a little bit out front. I think at times that can be a challenge, and it's all personality too. Like, if that's not in your personality, then it's not your fault.
So a quick follow-up to that, and an easy follow-up question to that: is there a perfect candidate in your mind that the NSAA can find for this role? I'm not saying you have to name somebody off the top of your head right now, but is it possible to find that perfect candidate?
Yeah, I don't. I think the guy, and he's not going to apply for it because he just took over a brand new school as a principal. Tom Lee is the perfect guy. Tom Lee is well liked across the state. Everybody likes him, and when Tom Lee speaks, people listen.
Well, and he has range too.
Yes, that's what I mean.
He's worked in Omaha. He's from Hastings or Grand Island. Worked in Hastings. He has versatility.
He's covered ground.
Yeah,
and I think just widely respected from Omaha North to college to Westview.
Yeah, Northwest principal.
Yeah, overseeing renovation projects. Like I get it, but boy, that would be an awful big change for Tom.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do it, but he would be, in my opinion. I think he's the ideal candidate. And I don't think he's even going to apply. So there's a couple other names out there. I mean, I wrote about them, and I'm clear with that. I think some of the names that I put in there's Chris Loof, who's now at Kearney. I mean, he worked in Omaha. He's from Wakefield.
Former coworker.
Yeah, he's from Wakefield. He worked at OPS at Omaha Burke as an athletic director. Worked at Millard West as an athletic director. Those are two different worlds.
He's been a principal. Been a principal. He's assistant superintendent of finance. All of that, right? Like, there's all these different things. So I feel, I feel like he would be a good one. Aaron Plouse is a guy at Lakeview, I think, is a superintendent there. Well, you love Lakeview.
They're good people. So, anyway, I think he's a guy that's probably one. I think Jennifer Schwartz, frankly, has deserved the job a long time ago. And
she's fantastic. Do you think that's something she'd want to do? Because she's pretty amazing.
I don't think anymore. I think she did at one time.
She's dynamic. She's good with people.
Great listener.
I think
like her.
Yeah. So she, one of the things that I like about her, you guys, is too often people listen to reply. Mm-hmm. She listens to understand.
Yep.
And that's where the beauty of real communication is. She's a great interview. She's a very good listener.
She's a quiet listener,
which makes her a good communicator. Is that weird? Andrew's laughing at me.
I just kind of laughing at the example because I feel like a lot of people just in general listen to reply.
Yeah,
you want to reply
that's
to
no
something
fun.
that you say.
That's no fun because.
But you can understand and reply.
Maybe, but when the first thing is to have an immediate response, now there are some higher level thinkers that can process in a hurry. Don't get me wrong. But when you're quick to refute or to come up with, sometimes it's not about a solution as much as it is about dialoguing. So that's always a fine
I
line
agree
for
with
me.
you when you kind of make the impression of people always try to be the smartest person in the room, no matter what the case is. If they feel like they know a little bit about it or a lot about it, they want to act like they are smarter than you. So that listen to reply thing is something that I understand more.
And that's interesting you say that because, Mike, I was looking at the replies. I know people say, hey, on social media, on Twitter, don't read the replies. But
it's all facts.
Were you surprised that I won't say so many, but people are quick. It's almost like they're replying with whatever it is that is on their mind versus what the information, the article was disseminated, right? It's like I always like to give the example. If you talk about Nebraska in success, and people say, well, this isn't the 90s anymore. No shit. Like,
it's not?
Nobody said that.
Did you just curse?
That's your argument. From your lens, that's not what was being said. But they're so quick to want to get their stance out that they didn't really hear what was being said. Like, you see that an awful lot on social mediums across communicational channels.
Or you just read the part and then you're like, and you didn't read.
You're responding to a piece.
Where
right?
you major in the minors.
Right. Exactly.
I like to major in the majors, right?
Yes.
It's weird. So
you just take a chunk of something and then that's what you run with.
So I know you always kind of run the risk when you put those pieces out there because people will cherry pick.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened a little bit. One thing that I hoped, and it did happen, is it started creating conversations. It started creating conversations because in this column, I say the quiet part out loud. And it's the first time that's probably ever been done in this situation. And yeah, I had some difficult conversations with people yesterday in powerful positions.
Well, and somebody's got to do it too. And on top of that, I would venture to say, like, yes, you hear about the ones that are a little more upset about that being said out loud, but there's probably more people at home that are like, thank you.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. The number of text messages like, oh, my gosh, this is right on. Thanks so much for, like, doing this. Like, the first time you ever did this. Actually, I had one person say it's the best piece of journalism I've ever done, and I was like, oh.
Backhanded compliment?
Probably.
You know what's funny? See, Andrew can't relate because he's been groomed for greatness in media for a while. He's done the news. He's kind of been a traditional in terms of broadcast and journalism.
Right.
See, Sautter and I connect because we're like black sheep. It's not really kind of what we do. We weren't in J school. People accuse Sautter of being a terrible writer. I make up words. I can't run a board. I don't know much about radio, right? It's just like so he and I connect because there's multiple
working from
ways
the ground up is what I did
to skin a cat. but we can still appreciate.
I wish I had your path.
I don't think you do, because at some point you have to land the plane, and and even though you're significantly younger than me, there's going to be a lot of pressure.
Significantly, keyword.
There's going to be a lot of pressure on you to make sure that I'm who I'm supposed to be, because if there was no guidance and no grounding, then it would be anarchy. And which is why I like kind of Mike's evolution, because you're not grandfathered in or one of the good old boys. You've kind of always been, renegade is too strong of a word, but you've always been your own guy. That's how these kinds of articles get written, because you don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have an editor that's going to say,
It's free form.
You don't have to pass this, hey, this is what I want to do. Guys, what do you think about this story? Do you know what I mean? So I think
I've had to deal with the channels, yes. In my molding of who I am today as a broadcaster, I had to jump through hoops to be like, hey, I want to do this story, but then you have to go through 2 different people to get the A-OK. But yes, in this case,
I think if you want to let it rip, you just let it rip, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's no.
Nobody's telling Mike what to say or do either.
Renegade, also a great song. Too bad it's a Pittsburgh Steelers theme song.
Well, that's why I had to bring it up.
Renegade.
You just wait. You haven't been successful as a New York Jets fan in your adulthood, so you don't know how to handle it.
2 years.
I'm laying in the cut as a Steelers fan, because we'll be just fine eventually.
We've been good 2 years in my lifetime.
Yeah, and out of 42 or 3, that's not a ton.
No, 2 years. Remember, can't wait.
Yeah, my man Bart Scott. See you in Pittsburgh.
Now, Damon alluded to it at the start of the show. We kind of have a candy bowl of things that we can just pick out of to talk to Mike about.
Get all the fruit stuff, the Welch's gummies, the Dots, the gummy bears.
The razor blades. I mean.
No.
Whoa. Who said that?
Are you team chocolate or team fruit? Look at this guy.
Yeah, he's got his peanut M&Ms on standby.
He's a junkie.
Of candy?
Yeah, and you guys have similar frames, but he's significantly older than you. But you may have one of those ultra, eat what I want.
Sure do.
Could burn up a Whopper just by looking at it, metabolisms.
Yep. I look at 4 cheeseburgers from White Castle and say, that won't do anything.
Yeah, Sautter has a metabolism that is made for,
Sautter, we're just animals.
For speed, man. It's unbelievable.
Well, now tell me, Sautter, do you eat every meal of every day?
No.
See, neither do I, and that's an issue too. But see, Sautter and I are always on the clock.
This dude can go 8-9 hours without a thing.
Same. You know who else can do that? Our boss, Bill.
That's me too. I eat 1 real meal a day.
I do sometimes, most of the time, maybe it's like a Nutri-Grain bar or something in the morning, or a small bowl of cereal or something. And then there's like a linner in there, like snack linner. And sometimes that's an entire frozen pizza.
See, that's my man.
He's fantastic.
That's my man.
Hey,
and sometimes it's a peppered turkey sandwich with white bread, only from one specific place, with Miracle Whip, no mayo, only Miracle Whip and provolone cheese.
Hey, tell Drew down. This is how frugal this.
I'll
dude
take
is. Was that like it was like a year ago? It was post-pandemic, and he was livid at Burger King because his standard order. What did it go up from? Like, you were used to paying like $3 whatever for it, and it was up to like in the $5s or something like that. What was
Whopper
that?
Jr.
What was that?
Yeah, Whopper Jr. used to be like $3.99 for the meal, and then it moved up to like $4.60, $4.59 or something.
What's amazing is he just knows the exact price because that's me.
He was sending me pictures of. He was basically calling it extortion. Right,
You seem very hurt right now. You gonna be all right?
And he was mad because he used to say he could work 18 hours, and he could eat for $4 for the day, $4, and he could no longer work 18 hours and eat for less than $4.
Now, do you guys have Jack in the Box around here?
No, but Jack in the Crack is fantastic.
Did you know like those munchie boxes that you can get like late night box? They just throw like a bunch of food in one box and just send it home.
They have an amazing breakfast menu.
Oh, their tacos are fire.
No, we're not doing the tacos. We're doing
no,
breakfast sandwiches.
Tacos for breakfast at Jack in the Box? Oh, man.
No way.
Oh, man.
No way. So
I have
we
a
have a mutual friend whose dad will go to Jack in the Box from Omaha and get the 20 taco deal just because
I
he
once
thinks
bought
they have
$125 of churros at Taco Bell one time.
Yeah,
Or Taco Bell, Jack in the Box.
I
Sorry.
wouldn't tell anybody that.
No, that was incredible.
So how was the volleyball, Mike?
It was actually good.
Seeds held. At least an A.
Yeah, seeds basically held. There was only one kind of upset, I think, really, and that was in C1, Gothenburg, Malcolm. But that was the 4-5, so it wasn't really.
Go Swedes.
Upset. Yeah, it wasn't an upset, really. Everyone else held. I mean, you have before the state tournament was okay. In A, Papio South's playing the best. Like they're on a roll. Like we talk about being on a heater. That's what they're on right now. And
always love a good card reference.
and then at the bottom it's Southwest and West Side, and those are the two. They've been basically these 4 teams have been the top 4. You have the Battle of Papillion again. And then you have Southwest and West Side on the bottom. And it's been those 4 teams pretty consistently all year in the top, 5, I guess. And then B, it's the same thing. It's Scott, Elkhorn North. It feels like they're on a major collision course. And that's the one everyone's kind of talked about all year. Can Elkhorn North be the team? Well, Norris plays Elkhorn North, and Norris has been in Elkhorn North's position the last few years of, hey, they're going to get Scott. They're going to be the team to get Scott. So, you look at that, and I think I'm wrong. Norris plays Scott, I believe, in Elkhorn North.
Yeah, flip-flop, I think.
Yeah. So it's on the other side of that. But so Elkhorn North's the 1 seed. I don't think that really matters when it comes to Class B in the state volleyball tournament because we all kind of know who the 1 seed is until they get beaten.
So you've seen how it all sets up, Mike, between wild card points and sub-districts, and it may have a different name, but do you like how we were talking about NSA earlier, how wild card points and seedings work amongst the sports?
I think it's the fairest way. Like, tell me a different way, different formula. Give me a different – I do think it's the fairest way to get the close enough to as ideal seeding as you can. Unless you do a selection committee, but I don't know about that. Now in football, let's take football this year, Class A, for example. Millard South is the 12, right? 12 seed.
Correct.
We all kind of think full stock with the quarterback and everything, they're a little better than the 12 seed, right? Everyone kind of thinks that, I think, right? I think that's fair.
Better than a 12, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So the only way to do that.
My arm. I just was like.
The only way to do that is the only way to do that would be human. There's some sort of human judgment call in there. The only way to change that. I don't know if we want to go down that road because who's on that committee? People be mad, yelling at people. I mean, it would be not great.
And 16 for football is no different than 8 for state basketball, volleyball, right? It's just you call that early round something different in the other 2 sports.
Yeah, because sub-state or whatever that is, I wish that would go away.
Yeah, they're going to probably change the terminology because I think it says the wrong thing.
It's really confusing.
It is.
Because when I worked in Sioux City, I covered 3 different states, and all 3 states' terminology was different. And so now you're trying to figure out okay,
sub-state,
how important is sub-state, sub-district opposed to just district and sectionals, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, terminology has always been
what I could see happening or should maybe be a conversation is, Class B football is a little bit different, but if you're talking about Class B, I think you need to maybe do away with sub-districts That's the terminology of sub-districts.
How do you get to 8?
That's a great question. I don't know. But really,
because that's ultimately why you do the sub-districts.
Yeah, sub-district. So 3 teams that were in a sub-district, just volleyball this year in Class B. 3 teams that were in the same sub-district, all 3 made it to a district final.
But
because of wild card points.
Okay, so that could be an anomaly.
Yeah,
for the year. But how else would you arrive at 8?
I don't know. You had to get it down somehow. So maybe you just make the district play a week long or something, and it's a little bit longer, but then you're shortening the regular season a little bit at the same time, which you don't really want to do.
So
we're talking everything but football here.
Yeah,
right?
so that would have to be proposed by the charter member schools.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an NSAA thing because the NSAA works for the high schools, the charter member high schools. So I know, like with football, because we're on the 6th cycle of the 2-year schedule, where they went top 2 from districts, and then you serpentine the districts, and you try to go that way to get your 16 teams. And I can see what they're after. You're kind of too strong at the top. You have a middle-tier team, and then you have 2 probably lower-tier teams. And I think the districts so far have kind of balanced out in football.
Right. Do you think it's enough to change, though? Do you think people would be more upset by changing something that –
So the only thing that I could see, Sautter, and you have your ear close to this, I could see where maybe they take the top 6, the district winners, and take the 10 next best wild card points. But the only changes would have been Norfolk and Millard North would have gotten in this year.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I do think that
which would have been great for if you're a homer, for Westside, because that would have made every team on our schedule except for one in the playoffs.
Made it. Yeah, I think this year state football, you kind of got the best-ish teams. The 16 were kind of they were probably the.
I guess you have to make a case for Millard North.
Yeah, you can make a case. I was just going to say, you can make a case for Millard North because
being in the top 16.
Yeah, the strength of schedule and all of that stuff plays a factor. You can make that case for sure. But I think it's about as right as it's been in a while as far as getting the best teams in. And I think part of that is the schedule, flipping to the 2-year cycle. I think the schedule.
Yeah, because you played in pairs.
Yeah. And I think Nate did a really good job of putting the schedule together. I really do.
You know what's funny? I don't want to pump up the football director, Nate Newhouse, just because he is a friend and a former.
He's tremendous.
A former teammate.
Pump it up. Pump the jam.
He's one of those guys. So I go back to what Mike said earlier, though, Drew Down, because he said, about being present and kind of getting a feel and a pulse. See, that's Newhouse strength. And I think that's why football is different, because he's so many places during the course of a week. He responds to emails. He has a feel for what's going on because he's present.
The little things matter.
So I think he understands.
I said it without saying his name, but that's what I was referring to.
Nate?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
Yeah. I go to a lot of games, football games. I see him probably 2/3 of the games I'm at.
He's good with rules and stuff like that. So let's do volleyball first because we're current. Do you see any upsets since it's so chalk heavy? Now, Southwest and Westside is a virtual toss-up. Yeah. I know you like Papio South over Papio in A.
Yep.
Any upsets do you see in B with Norris and Scott and Bennington and
Bennington, Elkhorn North? I don't see that as an upset. Olivia Mock, though, who's committed to Nebraska.
Yeah, way good.
She is way good. But I saw they played again. Saw that sub-district final, and Elkhorn North won 3-1. They basically controlled every time that they played. I think they played 2 other times too this year. Scott Norris is the tricky one. Scott has the height and all that stuff. Like, they got the size, and they got 3 girls going to Division I schools or power conference schools. And Scott has the history, and Morgan Burke is going to really have to hit it well for a high percentage. She's committed to Michigan. Again, you have another really good libero in Paisley Douglas, who was phenomenal yesterday, kind of all over the court. So I think that one could be tight. But Scott's the favorite until someone beats him. So I don't even care who's there. So I don't foresee, I guess, seeding upsets in those.
So what about football? Because there are some tricky matchups here.
Yeah.
You mentioned Millard South, not an ordinary 12. Prep's not an ordinary 11.
No.
But,
were those surprises, would you say, though?
No, not in them winning, right? Because we previewed it, and
right.
It's like I think a lot of people had Prep and Millard South winning, but then you got Bellevue West sitting there as a 7. It's not really a 7 seed. So
how about Bellevue West, Gretna? We'll do it again.
Yeah.
We'll do it again.
I imagine that's where you'll be, Mike?
100%, no question about it. When the bracket came out, and I was sitting there on the bracket reveal show before it was even public, I looked and I'm like, if these 2 teams win, I know where I'm going to be on November 4th.
As long as it's not raining and
I'll
pouring
be
down
there
rain.
if it's raining. No, rain, sleet, snow.
I meant if it was rained out.
No, it ain't going to be rained out. It would take a hurricane for them to cancel it.
To stop that game from happening?
Yeah.
Because the weather will be an issue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it will be. And both 2 teams that running the ball right now is a little bit of a question, even though Goff has kind of solidified that for Bellevue West. Eggenberger has stepped in for Weber, had a nice kind of 2-way guy for Gretna. The time they played before, when it was 37-14 with 7 minutes and 9 seconds left, and Gretna came back. So both teams didn't really run the ball that much in the first matchup. If weather's an issue where cold and windy and rainy, and it's always windy at Gretna, no matter what, it's always windy. That could be an issue, right? But I do think there'll be a lot of people there. Maybe the weather will shy, some people away, but I'll definitely be there, and my full-on rain gear, whatever I need to do to get the job done. So,
real quick, so no upsets?
Listen, I think Bellevue West probably gets it done this time. Everything had to go right for Gretna. Everything for them to come back. I'm talking Donnie Whitfield misses tipping a ball in the end zone by a half inch, and Gretna doesn't win that game if he tips it. So now, my affinity for Zane Flores. I think I love that dude. It's almost like he's my kid. Like, he is phenomenal. He's the best pure quarterback, I guess, that we've ever seen in the state. I feel very strongly about that. I just think Bellevue West probably gets it done because, again, 37-14 with 7 minutes left. Like, that's 20-some point. That's a lot of touchdowns. So I just think they do. A lot has changed for both teams since they played, though. A lot of people are out, missing, not on the team anymore, injured, all those things. I just think Bellevue West probably gets it done, but I do think it'll be a very close game again.
Prep have a scare in them against Elkhorn South?
Prep can put a definite scare in Elkhorn South. I think that wouldn't shock me, and I think that one's about more of a 50-50 game than people think.
You're gutsy because you're the only one that's saying that, because most people think now that Elkhorn South is the best team in the state.
I think they're the most complete team, meaning if you look at their roster from top to bottom or just the 22 starters, right? I think they have the most complete. If you look at their kind of there's the questionable position groups. Defensive back is one that I think you kind of question for them. Their line play is good, but this is the best team that they have faced this year. They played Millard South without Cam Kozol. They played North, and that North, I think, was a benefit a little bit of their schedule. I think Prep's the best team, and they're rolling right now. They got the quarterback thing figured out. Yeah, they're still playing 2, but they got it figured out, and they're riding with that offensive line that is the best in the state.
Any shakeups on the other half before we let you go?
No, I think Southwest is going to be tough, man. Baptista is going to have to really have a game. Fritton's going to have a good game. Cal Newell's a nice player for them, but I just think up front, I think it's going to be a little bit – I think it'll be a tough challenge. I think the Millard South game will be pretty fair. It looks like Jace Crispin's going to play this week, which he didn't for Grand Island last week, and he's their best player. But Grand Island getting the win certainly gives them a little confidence. Cohen Evans is a quarterback that doesn't get talked about in the quarterback conversation enough. But I just think – I think what Millard South did in Kearney last week was pretty impressive. I think blowing them out was kind of like, whoa. And Brock Murtaugh he was everywhere for Millard South. I just think they're probably going to be a little too much. The Lance Rucker, is he injured, hurt thing is a question though too, because that'd be a big loss for Millard South if he can't go.
Sautter, you're the best man. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk soon.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
That is Mike Sautter, your Director of Sports and Digital Content for @the_NEB Preps. Your high school sports preview with DB and Andrew Rogers. Wipe, get on with your day. We'll see you tomorrow.